Good morning, guys. Today's video I want to go through what I'm sowing in February. Now January is quite controversial for sowing. It's often seen as a bit too early, but February there's a few more genuinely good options. Now there's about 3 vegetables I'm going to be sowing, and there's maybe another 2 that I'm going to be sort of sowing, but I've not done it before. I don't know if it's going to work that well, if maybe it's going to be too early, but yeah, let's get into it. So here we are at my potting station, all set up, ready to go. But what I am going to do is go through my sort of 3 safe bets first. So safe bet number 1 is rocket. The reason I sow rocket now in February is because it bolts really easily. If it gets too hot, it's just going to run to seed. So last year I think I sowed mine in maybe April time or something, and I didn't get much of a harvest before it ran to seed in June. We had quite a hot May, sort of beginning of June, and it just went to seed. It flowered and, you know, great for pollinators and things, but I didn't get much of a harvest. So I'm going to sow some now, and this is another one which you can maybe sow sort of late summer, so you get sort of an autumn harvest as well. Cool. So number 2 is obviously radishes. Radishes are brilliant because if I sow now, I'll be harvesting these in April. So I'll probably want to do maybe another sowing end of March so I can have some more in maybe May time. But, you know, these really, 8 to 10 weeks you can be harvesting these. So last year I grew cherry bell, which I had quite good success with. And I'll try and put up a video as well. But, with these ones, these are Sparkler 3. So they're a bit prettier looking in my opinion. You know, got nice little sort of white bottoms to them. But yeah, gonna give these a go. And finally, my final safe bet is spring onions. You've probably sowed your sort of bulb onions now, maybe December, January time, but spring onions are a brilliant choice now. And the great thing with spring onions as well is if you sow in batches throughout the year, you can have a supply of spring onions all year round. And it's really not a lot of effort. There's not a lot of pests or anything to worry about. Really easy to sow. So I'm going to get into my sort of technique for sowing these now, and then we'll circle back to the 2 sort of wild cards. First thing I do when sowing is I sieve my compost. The reason I have to sort of sieve my compost is because I'm quite often using multi-purpose compost because I don't know any better. So that sort of means I have to sort of sieve it to get out most of the big sort of chunky pieces of, I don't know, wood and other sort of compacted particles. But then I sort of fill this tray, so it's, got quite a lot of compost on, and then use my fingers, I just push it down. So these trays here are from a company called Container-Wise. These are actually the CD30, so it's created by Charles Dowding, who is a brilliant YouTuber and sort of book writer. And let's see if I can hold it up for the camera, or maybe not. Show you on this one. They've got massive drainage holes here, so you haven't got to worry about sort of overwatering your seedlings. They're not going to drown or anything. And yeah, they're brilliant, really. Next thing I do in each cell is I just make a little hole. Now, all of these seeds, again, if you read a seed packet, it's going to give you loads of stuff on like depth and things about how deep to sow your seedlings. I don't worry about that too much. The key is that you sort of bury them about the size, of the seed again, sort of thing. So it's kind of, I don't know, 2 seeds deep, if that makes sense. But in this case, maybe about half a centimeter to a sort of centimeter. I'm not too accurate with this. It will all be okay. Probably speed this bit up. Right, so first what I'm going to be doing is spring onions. Now spring onions, I'm going to sow, not too many, but I am going to sow them in a sort of multi-sown fashion. So like when you're in the supermarket and you buy bunches of spring onions, that's kind of what I'm looking for here. So I'll tip out the seeds in my hand so I can show you guys. Oh, I don't get too many seeds in this packet. Oh, actually, no, I'm wrong. There's actually loads in there. It's just not coming out very well. Cool, right. So what I'm aiming for is about 4 to 5 seeds in each hole. That way, they'll sort of grow together in like a nice little clump, and you can sort of just harvest a clump at a time. So, this way it gets a little bit delicate, and I'll probably over-sow. But I don't want too many of these because, again, and this comes with experience, and when you're very new and enthusiastic to gardening, you'll probably over-sow. And trust me, I've been there. I think my first season I had 9 cauliflowers all come ready at the same time, and there's only so much cauliflower cheese you can eat. But yeah, there we go. So I'm just doing six bunches for now, and again I'll probably do another sowing later on in the year. So all I do is I sort of just gently cover these up. If I feel I need to add a bit more compost, this is why I do it on a nice little potting station like this, because I can just grab a handful of compost and go. and then just firm it down. The key with firming it down gently with the sort of fit your finger is that you want the seeds to contact into the soil. And yeah, there we go. I had to interrupt the video just because I forgot to go get my labels and things. So make sure you always label. Next is radishes. Now, I'm going to sow quite a lot of radishes because, you know, you harvest a radish and then that's it. Whereas if something like rocket, I can pick leaves and, you know, the rocket sort of plant lasts quite a while. But yeah, I'm going to do 15 radishes here. Now, the interesting thing with radishes is you can do multi-sown radishes. I'm going to do a bit of both, only because if you do multi-sown radishes, to get the size that you would typically want from a radish, you'll have to wait a bit longer. So I want some nice early harvest, sort of just single radishes I can use in salads and things. But then maybe for, like, you know, space efficiency, we'll go for a few sort of multi-sown radishes as well. So when I say multi-sown, basically it's just plants that just grow, you know, next to each other, adjacent to each other. And you know, generally you don't get any issues with it. You can do quite a lot of different plants. So, you know, you can do it with leeks, you can do it with radishes, turnips, yeah, and a few other sort of root-like vegetables as well. But yeah, radish seeds are, you know, really great for, like, you know, if you're getting your kids into sowing and things, because not only do you get the sort of satisfaction of getting the harvest nice and early, but also, you know, the seeds are quite big, so they're fairly easy to handle, which is brilliant when you're trying to, you know, sort of delicately put them into the holes. So yeah, there you go, my 15 sort of plugs of radishes. Get those back in. All right, and then just got to cover those up, and then we'll do the spring onions. And again, spring onions is another one I am going to be multi-sowing here. Yeah. Right, so just a rocket left to go. As a variety called Oliveira. Now, with rocket, well, to be honest, with all of these seeds, you need to give them some, you know, nice warm temperatures in order to get them to germinate. So I will be starting these off indoors, under cover, protected from any sort of frost and things. But as they start to get bigger and, you know, they start to get their sort of true leaves and things, I will be moving them, you know, out into this sort of yeah, the plastic greenhouse. But obviously if you've got like a cold frame, or you've got like a, you know, really sort of protected spot, that would be absolutely perfect. Oh, here we go. Now, unlike the radish, the seeds are super tiny for the rocket. So you know, probably not something you want to get your kids too involved with. It'll be a lot of over sowing. But what this means as well is you don't really need to sow them that deep. So I'm not too fussed about how many I get in, because it's really hard to judge. Just got to be aware that you probably got to thin it out afterwards. Otherwise you have a sort of jungle of rocket growing. Okay. Right. So those were the safe bets, and they're all sowed. All I've got left to do now is water them, and then I can put them into, you know, a warm place in my house that gets a bit of sunlight, and you know, those should germinate, and we can go from there. Now, here come the wild cards. This is something I'm trying. I've not done this before in February. So first off is spinach. Now, the reason I'm sowing spinach now in February is similar to why I'm sowing the rocket, because what I found is it bolts quite early in the summer, and when spinach bolts, unlike lettuce and rocket, you can still eat the spinach leaves. They just get really small, and they're not as, you know, nice really, but they're still perfectly edible and, you know, reasonably tasty. But if you want, you know, big, nice, sort of lush spinach leaves, you've got to sow it when it's a bit cooler, so the spring or the sort of, I don't know, autumn. Sometimes our summers are quite cool here in England, so, you know, spinach will be fine, but other times it just runs to seed, and, you know, the sort of spinach leaves dry up. So that's one of them. I've got a variety called Monterey. Don't know. Next one is beetroot, and this one here is my first sort of packet from Real Seeds. Never used these guys before, but you know, they seem brilliant. And it's a variety called Golden Detroit. So rather than traditional red beetroot, it's going to be nice and yellow. Again, reason I'm sort of sowing these in this time is a bit different reason, but I'm trying to avoid some pest damage. So I don't very often like sowing under netting and things. I don't think it looks as nice, but by sowing it now, I should avoid a lot of the pests. So there's your 2 wild cards to maybe consider when you're planning your sort of February sowings. So I'm going to do 15 of each, 15 spinach, 15 beetroot. Now the spinach, show you what spinach seeds look like. They're quite dry and quite hard, to be honest. So interesting to see how long these take to germinate. Typically, if you've got quite like hard sort of husky sort of seeds, they're not going to germinate very quick. But I'm just going to put 1 in each cell. You know, again, you got to remember, you know, not all these might germinate, but if I get 15 plants, it sort of allows me to not worry too much, and maybe 1 or 2 of them get, you know, obliterated by a slug or something like that. And this is one thing as well when you're sowing seeds. Plan for like an 80-20 rule. Plan for maybe 20% of what you sow to not make it, either to not germinate, to get destroyed by the weather, or get destroyed by a pest. And that way, you know, you won't be too disappointed. But that's just a little tip there. And now the Golden Detroit beetroot. We're quite careful opening this packet because there's some quite nice design on this. Oh yes, beetroot seed. Haven't seen these in almost a year now. Right, so beetroot seed. They're weird little knobbly things, and they are kind of growing in clusters. Now, with beetroot seed, you might sow 1 seed, and you might actually get 2 plants. So sometimes a cluster will have more than 1 sort of seed on it. It's quite hard to tell just looking at it like this. So I'm going to sort of do 1 seed in each, and then maybe, I don't know, a couple of the little modules. I'm going to sow more than 1, because beetroot is another one of those plants that you can multi-sow. And you know, that way the sort of beetroot grow together. You get, you know, slightly smaller beetroots, but you know, it depends what you want. If you want massive, large sort of whoppers, then that's fine. But if you're happy with this, your sort of small beetroots you can use in salads and things like that, then of course you know, you can sort of sacrifice and have slightly smaller beetroots. So I hope you liked that video, and do remember there are potentially more optimal times for sowing, but these are plants that, at least 3 of them, I've got quite good experience sowing this time of year, and it's been fine. And there are maybe a couple other plants that I've forgotten to mention here. Lettuce is one that you maybe could start thinking about sowing now, but again, you know, there's always a slightly more optimal time to be sowing some of these vegetables. So yeah, hopefully you like this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you all soon for more videos.